Good evening. Welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Pritchard, Chair of the committee. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main reception door. Once outside, turn left and go to the fire assembly point on Exchange Road. If you're unable to use the stairs, you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel. Please note there is no comment function available. The Council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance with the Council's published data retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the room you are consenting to your image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting or training purposes. The meeting agenda is available on the Council's website. Around the tables sit the committee members who will be taking decisions on the items before them. Officers of the Council are also in attendance, and I invite them to introduce themselves now, beginning with the lady on my left.
Good evening. I'm Jess Tamplin, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening. Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance.
Good evening. Clem Smith, Head of Economy and Planning.
Good evening. Alex Sanders, Principal Planning Officer.
Good evening, Hamish Walk, Acting Group Manager for Development Management.
Evening, my name is Stephen Shaw and I manage the County Highways team at West Sussex County Council.
Thank you for West Sussex for coming and joining us today. Are there any apologies? I have received apologies from Councillor Burgess and Councillor Nawaz. Do we have any further apologies? Okay, disclosures of interests and lobbying. We will now take items 2 and 3 together. I will call upon committee members to declare any interests or lobbying in relation to any of the items. Please also declare if you have visited any of the sites. Councillor Abu Musa.
I have no interest to declare. I have not been lobbied. I have not visited any of the sites that is in question.
Thank you, Councillor Adonai. It was Councillor Abu Musa. You've got someone in front of you alphabetically now.
Good evening, Chair. I have not visited any site, no declaration of interest. I have not seen been blocked. Thank you.
Councillor Bidwell.
I have no interest to declare. The only relevant, I suppose, lobbying item would be the briefing we all received Friday afternoon, email-wise. Other than that, I have no interest to declare either.
Councillor Cheriton.
Good evening and apologies for the slight delay. That's the usual reason. I have no interest to declare. I have been lobbied by Aviva on behalf of the Leisure Park complex, just so you're aware.
Councillor Hart.
I have no declarations of interest. I haven't visited any sites and I have been lobbied by Aviva.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, I have visited the 2 sites, the Leisure Park and the Gateway.
Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening. I've no interest to declare. I have been lobbied on item 5, the Crawley Leisure Park. Had received an email from them. I have done accompanied site visits to both applications.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any interest to declare and I've not visited any sites and I've been lobbied on by Aviva. Thank you.
Councillor Magali.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I have been lobbied on item 5 and I have not visited any of the sites.
Councillor Yanni.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I have received the email from Aviva and have not visited any of the sites.
And for myself, I took part in the guided tour of the sites for items 5 and 6. I have no interests and I have been lobbied on item 5. Now we come to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 14th of January 2025. Does the committee agree the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? We now move on to agenda item 5. planning application CR 2023-0242 FUL, Unit 3, Crawley Leisure Park, London Road, West Green. Crawley, please can the planning officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just start with an amendment to the recommendation, which is up on the screen there? So, since the report was written, the construction management plan that the applicant had submitted has been agreed by West Sussex County Council Highways. So the condition is reworded from the one in the report basically requires a submission of the plan. The condition now simply requires its implementation. So that's an amended amendment to the recommendation. So the site relates to Unit 3 on Crawley Leisure Park. I'm sure you all know the Leisure Park fairly well, but the photos there show you Unit 3. It's the former Nuffield Gym, and it's on the western side of the surface car park, the western side of the leisure park. To the west of it is West Green Park, and to the south on the opposite side of Ifield Avenue is residential, is housing. So there's some views of the unit as it currently is. It's currently vacant and has been vacant for, I think, about 18 months. There's a couple of photos there of the multi-storey car park, which is immediately to the north of Unit 3. You can see on the left-hand photo, currently, the ground floor parking, you go in through where the barriers are. Currently, the upper level, you go round to the side, round to the left of the multi-storey. That arrangement will change in a way that I'll explain through the presentation. That's the current route through on the right-hand side to the upper level. And the last those photos are the Ifield Avenue frontage, so there's a hedge running along it. It is structural landscaping behind the unit running along the side of West Green Park. So turning to the application. You can see what's quite a large site plan, including the whole leisure park. So Unit 3 is outlined in red in the southwestern corner of the park. You can see the surface car park in the centre of the site, Cineworld and Hollywood Bowl on the northern side, the two bigger buildings, and then the cluster of restaurants over to the eastern side. There is a new restaurant, as you're probably aware, which is labelled under construction but has now been completed and is open. That's the application site. As I said, it was formerly a Nuffield Gym. I will show you the existing floor plans, although they're not particularly relevant now because the gym is closed. There used to be a swimming pool in the northeastern corner of the building. Otherwise, the floor space was dedicated to various kind of gym-related activities and obviously changing rooms, that kind of thing. I'll show you the roof plan because there are some changes on the roof. They're relatively minor, but you can see there is a plant deck enclosure at the centre of the roof. There are shallow roof pitches to the north and south with a flat roof area in the middle. So the elevations are as you've seen, but the main one is the bottom one there. You can see what was the main entrance to the gym and a kind of glazed core running up it, and the red, white and blue colouring that the unit is currently in, which is similar to the colouring of Hollywood Bowl and the Cineworld buildings. That's not so good. Okay, let's go to this one. So the proposal is to subdivide the building into 4 units. As you can see, obviously the building is in the same place. There is a slight extension on the north-eastern corner of the unit. There's currently a small overhang which would be infilled. There would then be 3 ground floor units. One of them is there, I'll show you more detailed plan in a minute. One there and the one below it, they're both proposed to be restaurants, and they would have outdoor seating areas extending out to the eastern sides. The L-shaped unit you can see wrapping round is the proposed soft play area for children. And then at the bottom corner you've got stairs up to the first floor. And I'll show you the floor space for that, the floor area for that in a minute. So a more detailed ground floor plan. You can see the subdivided units, subdivisions of the units there. So you've got 2 restaurants and a new kind of, effectively they will be refurbishing all the public realm outside, so it will link in with the recent changes further north at the new restaurant. So there'll be effectively a footpath running around the leisure park. On the first floor you can see basically just a large cleared space, some new glazing going on on ground and first floor to light these units. As I said, there are some proposed changes at roof level, so some solar panels are proposed, which are the smaller squares you can see here and here, with a new plant deck in the centre, and you can see a staircase there, a new staircase to access the plant deck would be kind of concealed around the back of the building. So you've got the proposed elevation. So this is the main frontage that I showed you before. So you've got new glazing going in at ground floor levels with the restaurants at this end, and then the soft play and then the staircase up to the first floor, and you can see there's also new glazing going in at first floor level. In terms of, actually I'll come on to the colour because we've got some other images later. That's the staircase that will be at the back of the building. And there you've got the other 2 sides. I'll come back to the cladding, but what you can see here is how there's kind of slats on the cladding. They do project out from the building by 2 metres, so it kind of wrap around the western and slightly around the northern side of the building. I mentioned the current access to the first floor of the multi-storey car park, which is at the northern end of the building. The reason that will be altered, so that the access runs within the car park, which you can see just there, is to provide a servicing and refuse yard for the proposed unit. So they all have dedicated refuse storage space, and this would become a service yard to serve those units with vehicles able to come in and turn round without encroaching on the public car park area. That gives you a better idea of this. It's obviously just an illustration, but it gives you a better idea of how the cladding would work. So basically the building would be reclad in a grey cladding material. We've got a current separate advertisement application for the leisure park logo on this elevation and round the corner. And then some glazing going in here. The large panels you can see are proposed signage panels. They would be the subject of a separate advertisement consent application. I do have concerns about the number of signs that are shown on these, but we will deal with those through that separate application. And there's another view. You can see the new restaurant in front of Hollywood Bowl here, the multi-storey car park behind, and that's the proposed changes to Unit 3. So I'll reopen the ground floor plan while I just run through the comments. So we've received, as you will have seen in the report, 274 objections to this application, which is obviously far more than you usually see to the applications that are reported to you. The issues are covered in more detail in the report, but basically relate to the loss of the Nuffield gym and swimming pool, increased traffic movements, surrounding roads and the access from Ifield Avenue being made more unsafe, difficulties in parking, with comments that the car park is full at peak times, lack of cycle parking, need for a travel plan, and then the comments that there are already enough restaurants in this area. Councillor Peter Lamb, as he was, reiterated the parking concern. He was also concerned about that. And I think the final one worth highlighting is that Nuffield Health stated that they had no objection to the application. So in terms of the issues raised in the report, it's probably worth noting the whole leisure park is within the town centre boundary, and it's also within the Sussex North Water Resource Zone, so it's affected by water neutrality. The planning history is set out in the report. I think the key thing to note is the condition that limits the overall amount of A3 food and drink floor space within the leisure park. So in terms of the principle, although there would be an increase in food and drink through the 2 new restaurant units created, the overall of the leisure park would still be within the total restriction across the leisure park, so would still comply with that condition set out in the planning history. The 4 uses themselves would be a gym, a soft play centre for children and 2 restaurants. They're all considered to be acceptable within a town centre location. So in principle, officers have no objections to the uses proposed. Transport and parking were clearly key issues raised in the comments. There are a total of 1,033 spaces within the leisure park car park, including the multi-storey. The proposal would involve the loss of 23 spaces, and they would be partly to create the new outdoor seating areas you can see here. So there would be a line of parking lost in this area. And there are also currently some public parking spaces in what will become the service yard, and obviously they would be lost to create that service yard. So it's a total of 23 spaces that will be lost, giving a total of 1,010. In terms of the proposed uses, the parking standards would require 223 spaces, but we need obviously to bear in mind that this is not a car park dedicated to Unit 3. It's a much larger car park serving the whole leisure park. You'll see in paragraphs 5.22 and 5.23 that planning officers did attempt to secure some improvements to either transport or parking management at the site. They weren't particularly successful, but a staff travel plan is proposed for the 4 units that would be created. The construction management plan has been agreed, as I said, by West Sussex, so that would be implemented along with the travel plan. And the proposal does include some additional cycle parking. I'll just go back to I think it's on there. No, it's not. But some cycle parking there's cycle parking proposed to the south-east of the unit at the pedestrian entrance from Ifield Avenue. There'll be some new cycle parking on the ground floor of the multi-storey car park, and new cycle parking next to Cineworld up here, and also in this location close to London Road. So 4 areas of new cycle parking, intended not just to serve the proposed Unit 3, but to serve the wider leisure park as well. So West Sussex Highways are satisfied with the proposal subject to those conditions and to the travel plan being secured, along with a monitoring fee for the County Council. In terms of the other issues, there's no significant impact expected to neighbouring properties, so the nearest residential properties are on the other side of Highfield Road to the south of south of Unit 3. The proposed uses aren't particularly noisy. The only potential issue we think, and Environmental Health will flag this up, is potential noise and odour impacts from the restaurants and from the ventilation associated with the units, but they can be controlled by condition. Obviously at the moment we don't have full details of the occupiers and what their requirements might be, so there is a condition to secure those details. No trees would be lost from the proposal, and you can see just at the bottom of the screen here 5 new Swedish white beam trees are proposed to be planted next to the hedge that is already there. And then finally, water neutrality. As the report suggests, it has been pretty complicated to resolve water neutrality on this scheme, but we have achieved it through a combination of water efficient fixtures and fittings within the proposed building, and also a condition 3, which restricts the proposed uses. So the uses are now within Class E, which, as you'll be aware, is a very wide-ranging use class covering most town centre uses. The applicants were not able to demonstrate that all those uses would be water neutral, but by the condition restricting it to the uses that are actually proposed anyway, they were able to demonstrate water neutrality. So condition 3 is particularly important because it is, although it restricts the use, it does secure water neutrality. So the recommendation is subject to the Section 106 agreement set out in the report, the amended condition 3 that I mentioned at the start, and to the other conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go ahead, can I record an additional interest for myself, a non-prejudicial interest as a member of Crawley Active Travel, and my comments will be covering areas that are covered by that. There are there is one speaker in relation to this, registered in regard to this item. Please, will Mike Mills come to the microphone? If you press the right hand of the 2 buttons on the microphone, it will turn it on, and you have 3 minutes to speak, starting when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. The application site has been vacant for over 12 months and the building is dated and in urgent need of refurbishment. Aviva investors are committed to the revitalisation of the site through a multi-million investment and forward-thinking development to secure the long-term economic future of the building, to ensure that the site continues to serve the residents of Crawley and creates new employment opportunities for the town, both during the refurbishment and reconfiguration phase and as part of the leisure and restaurant uses. As members are aware, planning policies at all levels support economic development, particularly in town centre locations where the application site is situated. And Aviva investors and their team have worked together with your officers to ensure that all the relevant and detailed planning policy criteria have been met. Through their management of large portfolio of similar sites across the UK, including 2 further assets here in Crawley, Aviva investors fully appreciate that there is a balance between the successful operation of commercial sites and ensuring that this does not lead to impacts, particularly in terms of highways and car parking. Members will note from the officer's report that West Sussex Highways has not raised any objections to the scheme following review of the technical evidence. Given its central location, the site is accessible by a variety of means of transport, and 30 new cycle spaces are being provided as part of the proposal. A travel plan relating to staff travel to and from the site has also been agreed. The proposal before members this evening represents a significant investment in Crawley Leisure Park in uncertain economic times. It will improve both the appearance and sustainability of the building, reconfigure the commercial space to suit modern requirements for tenants, enhance the leisure and restaurant offering by bringing new operators to Crawley, including Pure Gym and Oxygen, which is an indoor activity centre with trampolining and a soft play area, and it will ensure that the site is better integrated within the rest of the leisure park through new pedestrian, public realm and landscaping enhancements. The proposal is considered to be acceptable in terms of all relevant planning considerations, and we hope that you'll agree with the recommendation of your officers and grant planning permission tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Chariton.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I think I wouldn't be speaking out of turn to say we certainly welcome investment in Crawley, and the leisure park, the leisure centre proposal looks like the sort of thing that would fit quite well into the area and so on. I leave it for others to comment on the aesthetics. But yes, it's certainly welcome. However, I think I have to say is that when we were doing the site visit, I think, contrary to West Sussex, who how can I put it, may have their methodology, But those councillors, or those of us here who live in Crawley and who use the leisure park, can attest to the fact that at peak periods, it's almost impossible to find parking. Several of us commented on having to circle round and round and round to find parking spaces. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to lose 23 parking spaces, but any loss of any space in an area that gets so crowded is to be of concern, and I'd be remiss if I didn't remark on it. So my question to officers, because I'm also conscious of the fact is that obviously you have a commercial need to have the extended space, and I appreciate that. But the question then is to the officers, is there any way to, I'm presuming you've looked at this again and again, and I also see from your report that you've tried various different ways, traffic management in particular, to, if not provide the additional spaces, then at least manage the spaces that are there. And it may not be within your powers or indeed within the powers of Aviva to do much about this. But the question really is there anything that could be done with additional pressure? I know that West Sussex have given the nod to the traffic plan, as it were. They don't seem to see a problem. We as locals do, and therefore the question still stands, what could be done? Are there things that effectively could be done, and what pressure could be brought to bear? Because I know you have tried various things as officers.
I think if it's okay, both Stephen and I will offer an answer to that question. So what I was going to do is to explain what I tried to do through assessing the application. Obviously, I was aware the county didn't have an objection to it, but I was also aware that quite a lot of objections were made on the basis of parking. So the various issues that have been discussed are, we're widening the travel plan out because it is proposed to just cover staff usage. So there were some discussions about a wider travel plan, potentially for the whole leisure park or for Unit 3, but including Unit 3's customers. But we have ended up with a situation where we've only got a staff travel plan for Unit 3. There were discussions about potential management measures within the car park, so whether that might be charging or a limit on the time people park, those kinds of things, but some way in which demand for that car park could be managed and controlled. Obviously, cycle parking was discussed, and that has been there have been positive improvements in that front for the leisure park as a whole with the proposed cycle parking. Aviva did come back with a suggestion, as the report says, of a contribution towards amending the traffic regulation order in the area on the other side of Ifield Avenue, the residential area. I think that currently only operates Monday to Friday and Saturday. Yeah. Monday to Saturday, but not in the evenings, I don't think, and not on Sundays. So there was a potential to expand that. But West Sussex's concerns on that were, firstly, that it wasn't certain the cost would cover the contribution would cover the cost of doing it. But there was also a concern, I think there is some validity to this, that it might simply offset parking that may currently take place in that area to the leisure park. So it could actually increase parking demand within the leisure car park. There haven't been objections, I think, from residents in that area suggesting that they wanted that traffic regulation order amended. So I think they're the main areas that we discussed, and maybe I'll hand over to Stephen to set out the County Council's position.
Just to add, councillors, on what Hamish has already said, explain West Sussex's view and why we've drawn the conclusions that we've drawn. I think initially we don't dispute that at times, clearly the car park is going to be at capacity and there is going to be excessive amounts of demand for the car parking there. We're not disputing that. I think where we've drawn the conclusion is that effectively, when looking at planning policy in the NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, we can only recommend a reason for refusal where the impacts are severe. So I think what we're saying is that we acknowledge it does get busy at times and there is excessive demand for car parking in that locality, but we don't feel that the impacts of that warrant a reason to refuse the application. Because what we're looking at is effectively the difference from the existing arrangements, what's currently there, to the proposed, and it's not a significant uplift in trips above what could currently occur in existing levels. There's even with the loss of 23 parking spaces, as highlighted in the presentation, we don't feel the impacts of that would warrant and effectively create that threshold of being a severe highway impact and warrant the refusal the application. So effectively, that's why we've drawn the conclusion that we've drawn. In terms of the contribution to a CPZ, as Hamish said, it would go nowhere near to the full cost that would be exposed in terms of the consultation, but also then implementation if it was supported by residents. And also it was only for Zone A, and given the number of controlled parking zones in the proximity of the site, you would have to do probably all the areas and a review of all the areas, because otherwise you're just moving the cars in other areas, and another area would just be attractive for people to park in. So that's the reason why we didn't feel that was a comprehensive approach. I think the obvious solution, if that's the right word, is that there's a maximum parking restriction in terms of the hours that vehicles could park there. The County Council haven't insisted upon that because we don't feel that that's warranted and required as part of the plan application, but it would be an obvious solution that would effectively enhance the operation of the car parks, because rather than just having a space used up for extended periods of time, you're using it more efficiently, effectively.
Sorry, can I just come back on one further point, just to emphasise this to members? You are only considering the impact from the proposed changes to Unit 3. So you may have concerns about the leisure park car park as a whole and its existing operation. That's not actually what you're considering. You're considering whether the changes to Unit 3 will make that situation any worse on their own. Okay.
Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. I wasn't sure whether I was next or one after. Right, well, yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Cheriton. I don't believe that the parking survey can have been done when the car park is full. It says the parking survey says 731 spaces were used on a Saturday evening, and there are 1,033 spaces there. I just do not believe there can be nearly 300 spaces empty on a Saturday night. It's just completely unbelievable. And so I've got a couple of questions relating to that. We've heard about the using of 23 spaces. So 23 spaces are lost because of the new outside space. But I'm sure I read in the report somewhere, but I can't find it right now, that the actual requirement for 2 restaurants, a gym and a ballpark would be an extra 55 spaces. So that actually is 78 spaces deficit, which is a considerable number. So I want that cleared up. And also, while we're talking about, well, quite a lot of talking about car parking spaces, the access to the car park is going to be changed, and no one has commented, and I would like to know whether the new layout of the car park will actually cause a decrease in spaces as well. Nobody's mentioned that, because if the entrance to the car park is being placed internally, surely spaces must be lost because of that. So we could be looking at even more spaces lost. Now, I know that it's not part of this application, but we've got a 2-storey car park there. While we're doing the work, while you're doing the work to the car park and putting in a new entrance ramp to the upper levels, is there any possibility that another floor can be put on that car park, or half a floor to be put on that car park to provide some increase in spaces? It just seems really logical to me that if you're doing the work for the car park, put a half a floor on, a whole floor on, so that we can actually have more car parking spaces, because loads of people I know have been driving around there, dropping people off and missing the start of the film because they can't find anywhere to park. And then I go on to my next point. It's a leisure park, and we've got more restaurants there, and I'm concerned for the businesses inside the town centre that may lose business when there are more restaurants. This is, it's leisure. Leisure to me is the cinema, is the trampolining thing. That's great. The bowling alley, but more restaurants. It'd be really sad if this new facility drags people away from the town centre, and the town centre businesses, are impacted by that, and our town centre, our high street dies because of all the people are just spending their time at the restaurants there. time limited car parking spaces. Somebody mentioned because you've got the cinema and restaurants and a bit of bowling going on, bit of ball pond for the children and whatever. You're going to have a lot of time. Sometimes films, by the time you've got all the adverts and all the nonsense that goes on before a film, you're going to be there for quite a substantial amount of hours. So it's not a matter of 2 hours and then you're off. It's a matter of 4 hours minimum, I would say, on a lot of occasions, particularly if you've got children in and out, going to chicken licking or whatever it's called. So those were the points I wanted to make. Thank you.
Hamish, you want to come back?
Yes. So up on the screen, you can see the layout of the multi-storey car park. So currently, I don't know why that yellow box, sorry about that, I don't know why that's flashing up, but currently you go in, ground floor level, you go in that entrance there, which I showed you on the photo earlier, and currently to get to the first floor, you go through this area, you use the same ramp, but you come in this way and then go up the ramp there. What this would do is change the internal entrance, so you could go in through that entrance and then up the ramp. And I don't think there's any loss of parking spaces in the multi-storey car park as a result of this. The spaces that would be lost are either in this service yard where there currently are some parking spaces around the edge of it, and the bit that's proposed for the outdoor seating area in front of the proposed restaurants.
So there are no parking spaces to the south of that ramp there where that new cycly doodah thing's being put? Because I thought there were 3 or 4 there.
Well, there are. There's one there and there are 2 there, and I think they are remaining. They're still shown on that plan. So although obviously you will have an increased number of vehicles going past those spaces because vehicles accessing the first floor would go past those spaces, the spaces themselves would remain. And then your other question about the town centre, I mean, I understand your concerns about the potential impact on restaurants in, say, the High Street or other parts of the town centre, but the fact is the leisure park is within the town centre boundary in the local plan, so I'm not sure we could make that argument here, although I understand what you're saying.
About another half floor or floor on the car park, has that been considered? Because that would provide up for the loss of spaces, which, can you confirm whether it is 78 or whether it is only the 23?
It's only the 23, I think. I have not discussed any changes to the multi-storey car park with the applicant.
Councillor Adonai.
Thank you very much. It's a very nice idea, and it's a better use of the current, of the previous use of that Unit 3 by Northfield. However, some of the points I want to raise have been raised by Councillor Jaggard and Councillor Julian Sheraton. But one area that I would like to mention is the location of the refuse area. It is located right in front. And if you have a kind of a lovely building design in the design of the new Unit 3, and then not far to it is the refuse area. And I think that refuse area should have gone somewhere behind or by the side, not right in the front of the design of the, when you're looking at in the front elevation or from the side. You said the refuse area will be close to the entrance of the car park. Yeah, if I'm right, too close to the entrance of the car park. Am I right?
No, I think it's
the refuse area.
I think it's next to the multi-storey car park.
Yes, next to the I'm saying next to the multi-storey car park. Yeah, and then how will this impact on entrance into the multi-storey car park itself? Because at peak times, entrance or coming out of the car park is always a challenge for people. Now, if you now have to put the refuse area close to the entrance area of the car park, if I'm right, will it not impact on the flow of traffic and also the location of the refuse area? I'm just thinking that the refuse area should be somewhere behind. That's my observation. Thank you.
No, I think there's a bit of confusion there. I don't think it will have any adverse impact at all. So you've got Unit 3 here. The restaurants will have their main frontages here, out onto their external seating areas, and the main frontage really of all 4 units would be on this side of the building. The refuse storage area is here, so it is as far around the back of the building as you can get. Yes, vehicles will come in using a similar route to the public cars using the car park, but there is obviously quite a wide gap to get in. The larger vehicles, the refuse vehicles, will come in here. The public will be going into the car park there. So I don't think there's any particular conflict. I think the other point probably worth making is that the car park is probably at its busiest on things like Friday and Saturday evenings, and I think servicing is likely to take place much earlier on weekdays generally, I would have thought. The units themselves, you can see they've got doors here, here and here, the ground floor units, so they have got access directly out into the bin store area to take refuse out that way. So I think the refuse is relatively well separated from the other parts of the site.
Is that all, Councillor Adonai? Yeah. Councillor Abermosa, did you want to speak? No. Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. I have just found the point, which was 5.20, and it says there'll be an increase requirement of 55 spaces in addition to the 23 that are lost.
Yes, sorry, you're right. There is, yeah. So if you applied the standards to the existing or former use of that building and the new use, yes, there would be an increased requirement of 55 spaces on top of the 23 that would be lost.
Okay, I'm going to come in with some comments of my own. I attended the site visit, and I have good experience of that. I have children. We go to the cinema frequently, and we eat in the restaurants there, Bella Italia being a favourite of my daughter's, so I'm very familiar. But I don't drive. So while I was at work over the last few days, I've just commented on people's experiences of going there, colleagues that live in Crawley that do drive. And what Councillor Jaggard said about driving round and round and round is a common experience amongst work colleagues. Luckily, I tend to get the bus there and walk from the town centre, so I don't experience that. But I've known when we've had parties for my daughter, children turning up late. It's a very regular thing. It's not the occasional weekend. It's every weekend. And the net loss of 70-odd spaces, as Councillor Jaggard has highlighted, is going to be noticeable. The comments made by our colleague from West Sussex County Council that you're not going to have many additional people using it because they're going to be on site for the cinema anyway. Quite right. For the restaurant purposes, most people that are eating at other establishments currently will migrate to these new establishments, and there won't be a massive increase in people attending. They'll just change their behaviours. But you're also restoring a gym on site, which will have a completely different clientele. Again, there's arguments that that's not going to necessarily fit in the leisure time of the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, afternoon, evening periods, but some of that overlap will. And a ballpark, it's another thing, or not a ballpark, a children's soft play area is another thing that's going to attract people that wouldn't otherwise be attending the site. I have deep reservations about increasing demand on parking without some form of way of alleviating it. And from what I can see in the application and what we've been presented this evening, there has been a token gesture of stick a few cycle ramps up, the cycle hoops up. I am, as I said before, a member of Crawley Active Travel. I love the fact we've got more cycle things. But when we visited, and virtually every other time I visited, the cycle racks that are already there are not used because there's no active promotion by the site to encourage their customers to come there. There's no publicity. There's no I don't know, £5 off a cinema ticket if you can prove you've come by bike. I don't know how that would work, or something that would encourage active travel to the site, walking and not cycling. Another thing that could have been done, which hasn't been done, is maybe a shuttle bus. A lot of people will come into Crawley by bus, and then they either take the long walk to the thing, or they think, hang on, I'm not going to go by bus, we'll take the car. If there was a shuttle bus from the town centre, from Crawley bus station, which ironically we're going to be speaking about a little bit later, to the park, not all the time, but during those busy times, it would alleviate the parking. But none of these options are coming forward in front of me. So I'm now thinking an already packed car park where friends and colleagues of mine have missed the beginnings of films is going to be under increasing pressure, and I'm really concerned about that. So something from the developers to promote active travel to their site would be a very positive tick box for me, but it's clearly absent. Just check. Yeah, the cycle racks are just tick box exercise, and I don't think they're effective at all unless you're going to make them effective. So they're my comments. I don't think I asked any questions in that, did I? Hamish, did I ask any questions? Did I? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Chariton.
I don't know, really. I mean, the ideal way to do it would be through a travel plan that had a wider remit than just the staff travel from Unit 3. But that was discussed with Aviva and they weren't keen to do it. So that hasn't got any further. I don't think this committee could simply attach that requirement because I don't know what Aviva's reaction to it would be. I don't know whether Stephen wants to say.
I think what you've just said, Chair, are all commendable things, which I completely agree would be beneficial to the site, and they will be great things to do. I think what we have to do, though, is look at, as Hamish said before, the impact of just this standalone unit, because that is what the plan application is for. And I think there's been conversations there in terms of what the site could do as a whole, and that there may be measures, but I think what's before the committee today is very much the impacts of this unit as a standalone unit, and what the implications of it are. So what we have to do is take a proportionate approach to the mitigation of that. I think the officer recommendation to you is that a proportionate approach has been achieved. It might not address all of the problems, and it might not be the optimum arrangement for the whole of the site, but for the impacts that are forecast for this standalone unit, they're appropriate. It might be that committee wants to make an informative to the applicant and make them aware of those other things that they should consider, but they're very much outside of this planning application because they result to the wider retail park as a whole rather than just the specific impacts of this planning application.
Okay, I am going to disagree with that. In any application, we have to look at the parking related to the visitors to the site in question. And if that parking is part of a wider parking system, we have to consider whether it can take the additional burden. So I do believe it is within the remit of this planning decision. Councillor Chariton.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I just had it confirmed because I couldn't remember from the document, but Aviva own the whole site, don't they? So although it's for this one application, it seems to me that, you know, they might want to reconsider their... how can I say, their reluctance to engage with the extended travel plan. They do own the whole site. I mean, you say, okay, they were talking about one part of the leisure park, but I reiterate, they own the whole site. So it might be, maybe, you know, with a gentle encouragement, perhaps.
They're also happy to spread their mitigation cycle hoops all over the site as well. It's not only at locations.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah. So I'm just pointing that out. Thank you.
Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you. I did also want to. I was reminded by Councillor Jagger just on top of what was said regarding the parking. It's worth noting that people coming from further places also use the parking. So, you know, places like East Grinstead, Reigate, people will come and just park. But also on top of that, I really just wanted to I suppose, offer my sympathies to and acknowledge people who objected to the loss of the Nuffield facility on the case of mental health. I think as someone who enjoys sports and appreciates the benefits that sports and exercise can offer to mental welfare, I hope that a solution is provided to people who take advantage of this.
Thank you. Any more comments from my colleagues? Councillor Yanni.
Hi. Just on a separate note, I mean, I really love the idea of soft play and a trampoline. My 4-year-old will definitely benefit from that. But I do lament that there are more restaurants being proposed when the space could be used for, as you say, we've talked about here, like youth or cultural spaces. With more restaurants, which makes me feel, it feels like an evening activity. I was just wondering if there had been any kind of thought into, if it is an evening activity and there will be more people there in the evening, is there anything we need to think about in terms of crime prevention being put in place, like CCTV or lighting or police liaison? Is that something we need to think about? Is there any a strategy in place to prevent antisocial behaviour around that area? I don't know, the seating and
I'm not sure I can answer that in any great detail, really. In terms of the public realm improvements, I think you could certainly make an argument that there will be a footpath that basically runs from the front of Unit 3. Basically from the pedestrian entrance on Lyfield Avenue runs up the front of Unit 3. It will then link into public realm improvements that have already taken place outside Unit 12, the new restaurant, and then continue on up to Hollywood Bowl and across Cineworld. So I think in terms of public realm improvements and probably lighting and those kinds of things, it will be a more attractive environment and probably generate footfall running around the site, which you could argue might have security benefits in terms of numbers of people moving. Obviously, in the evenings, the restaurants would have their main frontage out that way as well, so there would be increased visibility even by people within those units. So I think there are some benefits. In terms of CCTV, I don't know whether the leisure park has CCTV. We haven't received comments from the police, but I suspect that for this type of application we probably wouldn't have consulted them, so I don't know that I can say any more than that, really.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to permit. As the chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the vice chair to second, please?
I'll second it.
Can I ask for a show of hands for all those for the recommendation to permit? All those against the recommendation to permit? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And all those abstaining? And 2 abstentions. Application number CR2023. Oh, well done. Sorry. As a committee now, we have to give the reasons for our refusal, which my Democratic Services officers just reminded me. Those that have been on the committee before know that we have to give valid legal grounds for refusal. I think we have all commented on the implications on the lack of parking and the hang on. Sorry, having received some advice, we have two further options other than we have not given permission. We have two options on the table. One is to refuse and give reasons to refuse. The other is to defer, to allow the applicant to satisfy some of our concerns, particularly as during the debate there were a number of potential solutions that would satisfy the committee. I'm getting nods on that, so if I can ask for a vote, if I can, as chair, I will move the recommendation to defer the decision to allow further negotiations to take place. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
Seconded.
All those in favour of the decision to defer, please indicate now. That's unanimous. Turn my mic off. Application CR 2023-0242 FUL Unit 3 Crawley Leisure Park, London Road, West Green, Crawley, has been deferred for further negotiations to take place between the developer and the planning department for it to be come back to committee at a later date. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6, a planning application CR 20240554 FUL Stationway Friary Way. Stationway Friary Way, Haslett Avenue West and the Martlets is a list. Can I ask the officer to present the report, please?
Thank you. I'm afraid again on this one there's some slight changes to the recommendation. They're fairly minor, but you're probably aware pre-commencement conditions need to be agreed with the applicant, and when I came to do that I realised, and they also need to have a reason, there needs to be a reason for the condition and also a reason why they're pre-commencement. I did spot that 3 of them didn't have the latter, the reason why they're pre-commencement. So for the 3 conditions listed there is now an additional part on the end of them which just explains why they're pre-commencement conditions. So just a slight amendment to the recommendation. So the site, you'll all know the site well. It's a very large and awkwardly shaped site, but it covers mainly the public highway from the Martlets, which you can see on the left-hand side there. You can see the bottom end of the Martlets in the middle, and then going through into Friary Way and Haslett Avenue West on the right-hand side. Here you can see 2 views of Station Way and the crossing leading over to the Crawley railway station. Some views from Station Way looking back up towards the bus station. You've got on the right hand side again the bus station, and you can see County Mall and the footpath along the side of County Mall there. On the left you can see the taxi rank, which is on Haslett Avenue West. And then moving on to some images of trees. So these trees are on the south side of Haslett Avenue. Sorry, I didn't mean to click to move on there. The south side of Haslett Avenue West. And you can see the roundabout at the bottom of the Broadway as well. You can see these are images of the band of trees that runs down the centre of Haslett Avenue West and extends round the corner into Friary Way. So there's some images of the site. As you'll all be aware, it's, as I said, public highway primarily. It's also an area of considerable traffic movements, well, of all sorts really. So obviously a lot of bus movements within the site. You can see the site outlined in red there. So it extends from Queen Square, from the Martlets where it joins Queen Square, down to Haslett Avenue West, Friary Way and Station Way, as far as the Southgate Avenue junction. So you've got obviously a considerable number of bus movements, particularly in Friary Way, but then going off up Haslett Avenue West and the Broadway and along Station Way. You've got the taxi rank, which is located on Haslett Avenue West here, so quite a lot of taxi movement through the area. Station Way obviously has private car movements as well. And cyclists, it's quite busy for cycling too, and obviously for pedestrians as well, coming out of Crawley station and links through into the town centre in various directions. So quite a busy area. The proposal is for extensive public realm improvements. So starting with the Martlets would be resurfaced. It would also have a line of trees down the centre and some street furniture. Obviously would remain pedestrianised, but would be an upgrade to its current condition. The biggest change really is within the bus station area, where a central island would be created, effectively a large and long roundabout, with bus stops on both sides of it. Vehicles would turn in there would be a dedicated bus lane on Station Way. They would turn in, they would actually go up the County Mall side of the new island, so there'd be various stops there. They can either then continue up the Broadway, as obviously some bus services currently do, but they can also turn round and go back down the other side of the island, where there'd be a dedicated left turn out onto Station Way with a new bus lane running part of the way along Station Way. Taxis would also be able to use that area. The taxi rank would remain. And other key changes would be a straight alignment to the pedestrian crossing coming out of the railway station leading across Station Way. The traffic signals would be adjusted. That's not really part of the planning application, but they would be adjusted to give greater priority to bus movements, basically to speed up bus journey times. And as you can see, the public realm improvements would extend with a wider footpath on the north side of Haslett Avenue West, a wider footpath along the County Mall frontage, in part because the footpath currently running along the western side of Friary Way would be removed completely. So pedestrians would be directed to either the eastern side or the traffic island, the bus island itself. And then various improvements along Station Way as well, including, as I said, bus lanes and cycle lanes as well. Not sure why that says first floor plan. I suspect I've just forgotten to label it. No, it is a first floor plan. We don't need to see that. So the more detailed plans are these. So you can see in more detail, you can see Queen Square at the top there, and the resurfacing that's proposed to the Martlets. I'll run through these fairly quickly because I've already covered it on the larger plan, but these do just give more detail of what is proposed. I'll come on to talk about trees in a minute. So there would be a new line of trees along the centre of Haslett Avenue West. You can see these are the larger oak trees to the south of Haslett Avenue West. They would all be retained. You can see more detail here of the bus island and the cycle lane. Sorry, the bus lanes here. The cycle lane would run along the south side of, I think actually on both sides of Station Way. And then this one here is gives a bit more detail on the Station Way improvements. I'll move on to show you the soft landscaping proposals. I'll start with the tree removal plan because there would be a number of trees that would be removed as part of the scheme. The main one is the existing belt of trees along the centre. They're ash trees along the centre of Haslett Avenue West. They would be lost because of the realignment of the road. but they are proposed to be replaced, but in a slightly different location. The other trees to be lost, there are a couple of trees at the bottom of the Martlets. One of the trees at the western end of Haslett Avenue West would be lost. And then there's a Corsican pine tree which is on the corner of Station Way and Friary Way would be lost. They would all be lost simply because of the need to adjust road space and give more movements for, well, create the bus island and allow for movements around it. But what you would get by way of replacement, there'd be quite a lot of new tree planting. So around the bus station itself, you can see basically all the coloured circles are new trees. There is a key to indicate what sort of trees they are, but you can see quite a number going up Friary Way there. This one shows you new planting, the new line of trees, and it actually overlaid against the existing line, so you can see the alignment of the trees is slightly changed, but new trees at the centre of Haslett Avenue West, and then some additional tree planting around that. And that shows you the new tree planting proposed down the Martlets. So a line of trees just running down the spine of that road with a larger tree in the open area at the bottom. I'll just run through the parking. Because there is some parking, particularly bus parking within the area. So currently you've got bus parking on both sides of, bus parking in terms of bus stops on both sides of Friary Way, with some central bus parking for stopovers for drivers who are on a break and using the facilities at the Metro bus unit here. You can also see at the top there in purple the taxi rank, the number of spaces in there. So that shows you the existing parking layout. The proposed parking would adjust that slightly. The taxi rank would retain the same number of spaces in a slightly different location, but basically the same kind of orientation. The bus stop spaces are located around the traffic island, so in a very similar location to their current position, but the central stopover spaces would be removed, and they're the spaces shown in green either on Haslett Avenue West or a couple of them just on Station Way here. So they would be spaces for buses that have reached the end of their journey to stop and allow the drivers to have a rest. So just to run through, I mean, the principle is obviously to encourage sustainable transport movements, and particularly to improve bus movements and speed of bus movements. So the principle is considered acceptable. It's also part of the scheme within the town centre to encourage economic growth and also to support residential development, not least in this location, the proposed residential development to the south of Station Way. As I said, the taxi spaces will stay as existing. There'll be new cycle lanes. Pedestrians would benefit obviously from the improved public realm, from a straight crossing over Station Way. As you're probably aware, you currently have to stop on an island in the middle and turn left or right before you can cross the other half of the road. So it would be a straight crossing. You would need to stop in the middle, but it would be a straight crossing. And then for buses, obviously you've got the circulation around the bus island, but the signalling would be changed to allow buses more access out onto Station Way through a dedicated left turn and then a cycle lane, a bus lane. I think that's the key issues I wanted to highlight through the plans. Obviously there are some other issues addressed in the report, not least our usual water neutrality one. In this case, water is only required for establishing the proposed landscaping, and that will be provided or mitigated through the Crawley Homes programme. The Crawley Homes programme has already made a huge amount of water savings, which has not yet been used in other developments. So we've agreed with Natural England that a tiny proportion of that can be used to support the establishment of the landscaping. So the recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report, but with the changes to the pre-commencement ones that I highlighted at the start.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers registered in regard to this item. Would Hugh James please come to the microphone, please? As I said before, the right hand of the 2 buttons on the microphone turns it on, and you have 3 minutes to speak, starting when you're comfortable.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Hugh James, Director at ECE Planning and appearing on behalf of the Council. The scheme before you seeks extensive public realm improvements to Station Way, Friary Way, the Martlets and Haslett Avenue West. The proposal is a key part of the Crawley Growth Programme and supported by the Towns Fund, which seeks to address current transport challenges and improve the overall functionality and appearance of the town centre gateway. Station Way, which currently functions as a dual carriageway for all traffic, will be reconfigured to better serve as a gateway into the centre. The proposed improvements include pedestrian crossings, bus lanes and cycle lanes, which will accommodate demand for sustainable transport options and make the area safer and more accessible for pedestrians and cyclists. The reconfiguration of the bus station on Friary Way is a key element of the proposal, and by introducing a central island with 11 bus stops, passenger flow will be significantly improved, facilitating more efficient boarding and disembarking. The widening of the pavement along outside of the County Mall and the addition of soft landscaping will create a more pedestrian-friendly environment, enhancing the area's overall appeal. Haslett Avenue West, which is currently used by buses and obviously also taxis, will also benefit from these changes. The resurfacing and widening of the northern pavement will improve accessibility for pedestrians, whilst maintaining the taxi rank and introducing additional bus layover spaces, which will improve the coordination of transport services in the area. The Martlets, which is already pedestrianised, will undergo resurfacing to enhance the character and functionality of the area, and the introduction of centrally aligned trees and street furniture will create a more inviting and enjoyable public space, encouraging social interaction and improving the overall atmosphere of this part of the town centre. The introduction of a 20-mile-an-hour zone, albeit not strictly part of the planning application, but the changes to traffic signal phasing will improve road safety, helping to ensure smoother traffic flow and providing a safer environment for all road users, including pedestrians, cyclists and motorists. As confirmed by relevant consultees, the proposals are deemed acceptable in terms of highways, design, heritage, ecology, trees and landscaping, drainage and sustainability overall. In conclusion, the proposal represents a forward-thinking investment in the future of Crawley Town Centre. The development will create a more efficient, safer and greener town centre, benefiting all who live, work and visit the town. The presumption in favour of this development must therefore apply, and I therefore urge you to uphold your officer's recommendation of approval and grant consent for this scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Councillor Michael Jones, Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member. I don't need to explain the microphone to you, do I?
I might remember, Chair.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. It is rare for myself as Leader of the Council to address the Planning Committee, but I wish to speak in favour of this incredibly significant application because I consider that it will very much benefit the lives of virtually everyone who lives, works and visits Crawley Borough in the future if you approve it tonight. Crawley Borough Council is pleased to bring forward proposals to physically transform the public spaces on the Martlets, Haslett Avenue West and Friary Way and deliver major improvements to the operation of the bus station in the heart of Crawley Town Centre. These proposals for Station Gateway are a deliverable thanks to government and local authority capital funding allocated from a combination of the Crawley Growth Programme and the Crawley Towns Fund, as has been mentioned earlier. This is just the first phase, Chair, in an ambitious plan driven by the Council's Town Centre Regeneration Programme to attract private investment in new residential, retail and commercial development within the area, generating hundreds of new homes and jobs which benefit Crawley residents. Phase 1 proposals for the Station Gateway scheme will benefit the town centre in many ways, but including the following: providing physical improvements to the public spaces on Friary Way, the Martlets and Haslett Avenue West, creating a better connected transport hub for pedestrians and cyclists between the railway station, bus station and the wider town centre. It will deliver an enhanced bus station with improved bus and traffic flows around Friary Way and maximise operational capacity within the bus station to boost the provision of bus services across the town. It will provide high-quality, distinctive and enjoyable public spaces for residents, visitors and town centre workers, boosting footfall and vitality in the town centre and encouraging a stronger sense of place. It will add quality soft landscaping to the area with a variety of planting and greenery to enhance the quality of the environment. It will provide continuous and safe cycle infrastructure to the edge of the pedestrian shopping area as an extension of the wider cycle network. It will ensure the area is accessible to all users, including children, older people, people with disabilities, workers, residents and visitors who will be using the area at various times. It will transform the living and working environment to help unlock private sector investment and development, including new high-quality residential accommodation and new commercial space. The Council is committed to progressing the proposals in close dialogue with key stakeholders, which include West Sussex County Council, Metrobus, Network Rail, the Aurora Group, the Crawley Town Centre Business Improvement District and County Mall. These proposals, Chair, are an incredible opportunity for the Crawley Town Centre to boost economic growth and attract future investment in line with Crawley's economic recovery plan. It will enormously benefit the residents of Crawley for generations to come and also reinforces our commitment locally to act to maintain and protect the vitality of the town centre in the face of wider challenges to retail and services. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the debates. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hands. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got several points, as usual. I want to ensure that the signage that tells people that are crossing on across the zebra crossings, telling them that the traffic is coming from the wrong way round, because it's not like a normal roundabout that goes clockwise round. This is a roundabout that goes anti-clockwise round, and it's essential that the people crossing from the Martlets look left to make sure that there's nothing coming when they cross, whereas normally they would be looking right. So I want to make sure that signage is really obvious, otherwise we're going to have people being run over. The second thing, which I find really astonishing, we're spending all this money, we're doing all this lovely stuff, but we're not actually putting bus shelters on the central place where people are going to be waiting. So we've got all those people that Councillor Jones has just said are going to be benefiting from this, standing there in the rain, because there are no bus shelters, which I find absolutely astonishing. So the people are not even going to be able to huddle against the wall outside County Mall. They're going to be right in the middle of the road getting wet. And I find it bizarre, really, that we're going ahead with this when we haven't actually factored in attractive bus shelters for the whole bus station redevelopment. It's beyond silly, in my opinion. The next thing is about the redevelopment of Overline House. Now, when we were there, it's got a lovely little entrance where you go in and buy your tickets. The rest of it is an absolute eyesore, and I know that it has got planning permission, but I want to know, I mean, I know it's not part of this scheme, but it just seems, again, that we're doing one bit without the other bit, and it doesn't, there's no sort of connection really there. And the last point is about the bus waiting stops, which are a couple opposite Overline House and 4 outside the Friary Hall area, roundabout area. I find that's going to it's just going to clog up the place, and it's really surprising that no better. I think it looks actually like 5. Actually, there's one on the other side of the road as well. It looks like they're just sort of clogging up the place, and I find it disappointing that no better solution has been found for buses that are waiting for drivers while they're on their break. So those were my 4 things. Thank you.
Hamish?
I'll come back on some of those points. I'll leave Stephen to deal with the signage question, I think, because that is a highways matter. The bus shelters, I mean, I would agree with you that the island would certainly benefit from a bespoke and well-designed bus shelter, but that's not part of this application. As I understand it, the issue is funding, and I think Clem can add something to that. Again, it's not really, because it's not part of the application, I don't know the answer. I can only deal with the application that's before me. So I think that's as much as I can really say on bus shelters, is that they aren't part of this application. In terms of the bus waiting stops, they're the ones shown in green here. They have been amended through discussions with the applicant as things have gone along. And in kind of urban design terms, our main interest was seeing as many removed from this area as possible, because we saw that as the kind of prime, well, kind of a key pedestrian movement area. And we didn't really want the views of the 2 churches and the trees that are in this area to be obstructed by parked buses. Unfortunately, there are still 2 there, but that is a reduction on what we saw before. And I do think the alternative spaces that have been found are probably an improvement, although I do accept your point that in an ideal world there would not be buses just parked in this area. It would be a bus stop and a kind of movement space rather than a parking space. But I think given the location of the Metro Bus office, that is where staff take their breaks. I understand from Metro Bus as well that some of the bus journeys that finish in this area have come a long distance, like from the south coast, and the bus drivers, by the time they get here, are due a break, and the bus therefore can't go any further. So I think there is an issue there in terms of how they, how and when drivers need their break. So I think the combination that has led to the spaces being where they are. But yeah, I take your point that it would be better really that they were somewhere else. Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, yes, signage. Do apologise.
Thank you, Chair. So in relation to the signing, that is very much a detailed design matter rather than a specific planning application matter, but just to reassure you on that, the scheme has been subject to a stage 1 road safety audit, which will review all the safety implications of the proposals and identify improvements or changes that are needed. And subject to approval at planning stage, these works will be subject to a Section 278 agreement, where effectively the Highway Authority will allow the applicant, Crawley, to deliver the works, and they will be the detailed design will be subject to stage for subsequent stage safety audits as well to identify any issues. And I can pass on personally your comments about the crossing points and the need for signing at those locations to the engineers that would work on that.
Anything else, Councillor Jaggard? Councillor Chariton. Oh. Sorry, Clem, I will get through the officers.
Thank you. Can I firstly just reassure members that bus shelters will be provided, but through a separate process? Just to explain that, bus shelters in Crawley Borough, as you may know, are provided, managed and maintained by private finances. We contract with a bus shelter maintenance contractor who pay for the costs of managing and maintaining the shelters across the borough, and they do that via advertising revenues. So later in the spring, the council will be going out to tender to secure a bus shelter maintenance contractor for a further 10 years. And the tender will require, importantly, a suitable and appropriate bus shelter infrastructure to be provided on the bus station, new bus island. And that tender has been carefully put together, obviously to ensure there's a strong focus on the importance of the bus station shelters providing a quality passenger experience, and obviously the importance of the bus shelters providing adequate shelter and protection. So it will all be done through that separate process. The tender, the new contract, is scheduled to come online in the summer of 2026. Should you grant planning permission, the delivery of the scheme, the wider scheme, will be over a 2-year period, culminating in summer 27. So there'll be the ability to incorporate the new shelters into the scheme.
Now I get to Councillor Chariton.
I
Clem has stolen a bit of my thunder there. I think that was good to hear. No, that it's good to hear because I did see in the original proposal that there was a funding issue with providing shelters, and I guess we all read that. But it's good to hear that shelters will be coming. So it brings me on to my other two questions. Though there was more for clarification. I think I'm very much in favour of this application. It looks like the sort of thing that we need in town. It sounds like the sort of thing that will improve efficiency of bus movements and will be better for passengers overall, by the sounds of it. And if it also brings additional people, happy, bouncy people into Crawley, that would be wonderful. A couple of questions I have, though. One is a little concerned about the poor old tree. So, yeah, we are going to get some replacement, as they say, but as my friend and colleague says here, they're going to be twigs when we install them, aren't they? I mean, they're going to be replacing some fairly mature trees and others maturing. So there's a little bit of sadness over that. I'm not sure there's much can be done about it, other than a kind of a plea for if there is anything that can be done to save half-growing or nearly or fully grown trees, then please do. The second thing was on the highlighting the fact that the road access at the south end on by the station, I'm terrible with remembering names, is going to be more constricted. It's going from 2 lanes currently down to, for car traffic I mean, down to 1 lane. And I think at the site visit, I think, Hamish, I think you were quite rightly, probably saying that it's not. It doesn't have a huge volume of traffic, but it's probably as well to point that out that there will be, fewer avenues for travel. No pun intended, for cars to travel along, so to speak, in that area. And I presume some sort of traffic survey has been done, which has found no great issue with that. So that's my question on that aspect. And the other one was really is there's anything at all that can be done to save the trees, please do say. Thank you.
Trees were discussed extensively at pre-application discussions on this one, and I think some of the trees that are now saved were in earlier versions would have been lost. So I think we have made some improvements there. If you look at condition 12, it's quite a detailed landscaping condition in terms of what they are required to provide, and it addresses various concerns. I mean, the county arboriculturist had concerns about the sizes. I'll show you on this plan, but the sizes of the tree pits for the trees that are proposed to go in the centre of Haslett Avenue West was concerned they wouldn't have enough space or soil volume to grow. So that has been addressed by the submission of further details. Condition 12 also requires details of the tree's size to be submitted. So yes, we are keen to make sure that the trees that go in are bigger than your standard kind of sapling type thing. So hopefully there will be some more immediate impact from some of the trees that will be replacing the ones that would be lost. But I think as officers we do feel that there are reasons why the ones that would be lost are being lost, and I think the overall benefits of the scheme and the additional tree planting that would compensate for that kind of outweigh those losses really. Unfortunately, most of the bigger trees, particularly the oak trees in this area here on the south side of Haslett Avenue West, would all be retained.
So in relation to your second question about capacity aspects from a vehicle perspective, I think it's fair to say that Station Way is probably over-engineered from a vehicle perspective at the moment in time, and what's happening is a reallocation of road space to pedestrian, cycles and public transport effectively. As part of the application, they have assessed a Friary Way, Station Way junction, and that's been put into a computer software program to assess what the traffic implications would be, and that shows that it's going to still operate within capacity as a result of the changes. And as part of that, what they've done as well is they've included additional trips for committed developments, so developments in and around Crawley that have got planning consent but haven't yet been built out but are likely to come forward in the future. And they've assumed an uplift in bus use because of those developments effectively. So they've done a really robust assessment of the likely future scenario, what traffic that could be going through that junction, and it still operates well within capacity and offers improvements for bus services effectively.
Sorry, can I just supplement that, because it occurs to me as well, because having been caught out of that quite a few times, you've got the issue of the level crossing, and traffic can back up quite severely along there when the Southern, in its infinite wisdom, puts the barriers down 5 minutes before the train's due to arrive. That's part of the modelling. How does that look? Are there any? I mean, I don't suppose you know whether Network Rail or indeed Southern have any plans for the level crossing either, which might help.
So in terms of the second part, I'm not aware of any plans that Network Rail have got. There may be some. I'm not aware of any changes that they're proposing. In terms of the model, it is a standalone junction model. So it will have taken account of survey data that was undertaken. So I think there's survey data undertaken in 2023. So it will take account of the movements going through that junction and the queue lengths of the junction. From that survey, but what it won't do is model beyond the remit and the extent of this plan application. It will just be a standalone model, so it won't model the level crossing, for example.
Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you. Just a bit of clarity, Clem, just regarding the bus shelter sort of conundrum we've got here. Is the new solution that we're putting in, the whole, the plan that we're debating now, is that going to be put in before we've actually even got, started looking at the new bus shelter solution, or is it going to be built sort of alongside it?
They'll be done together. They'll be done alongside it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've just a couple of comments. Overall, I think the scheme is good, it's fine, and I'm happy to support it. There's one niggle that I have, is the number of people that are going to be crossing the zebra crossing onto the bus island. As Councillor Jaggard has said about very clearly signposting that the cars will come in the opposite direction to how you'd expect. But having all the bus stops on the traffic island means you have double the number of people crossing a bus lane. Because currently taking a return journey from any direction to, let's say, County Mall involves one crossing of the road. Every return journey will involve 2 crossings of the road, so you're doubling the number of people crossing that road. And also with buses using the bays, it could affect visibility of buses coming around that. Actually, I'm thinking about them coming around the corner the other way. It could affect visibility of buses coming into that area. So it's just something that when the final plans and final details are put together, just keep in mind. But generally, the plan is very good. I'm very happy with it. I do mourn the loss of a few trees, but do like the number of trees being put in, particularly in the Martlets, which will make it a very pleasant place to shop when it's complete. So I think that's good. Any other comments from my colleagues? Okay, turn the paper over. All the committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to permit. As chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the vice chair to second, please?
Seconded.
Can I ask for a show of hands, all those for the application? And that's unanimous. Application number CR20240554 FUL, Station Way, Friary Way, Haslett Avenue West and the Martlets, Northgate, Crawley, permitted subject to the conditions set out in the report. As amended by Hamish at the beginning of the presentation. We now move on to agenda item 7. CR 20240654 FUL 58 Cobbles Crescent, Northgate, Crawley. Please can the planning officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to 58 Cobbles Crescent, which is a Crawley Borough Council property. It's located on the southern side of Cobbles Crescent and is a detached bungalow. The dwelling has 3 bedrooms, a living room and a kitchen. There's 2 bay features on the front with a small single-storey rear projection at the back. So just to show the existing elevations, as you can see, there's a brick detailing. The sides have, and the rear have render with a tiled roof. So planning permission is proposed for a single-storey rear extension. I'll zoom in because it is actually quite small to see. It's basically this little square here, which measures 2.5 metres in width, 0.6 metres in length and 3 metres in height. And I'll show you the elevation. So it's this here, so it would have a small flat roof which would cut into this small cat's eye projection at the back, but it's quite a modest extension on this property, and it's basically giving the residents an additional bathroom because they're disabled residents who live there, and it also allows for the reconfiguration of the bungalow so they can get direct access from the living room to the kitchen as opposed to from a bedroom to the kitchen. And yeah, the much bigger bathroom, and they're also on the side elevation here, they are bricking in a door and putting in a small window. So there have been no objections to this application. As I said, it would be quite a modest addition to this property, which would give the residents the much needed circulation space. The materials would match the host property, and whilst a flat roof isn't typical to this dwelling, it's of a very limited scale, and it's on the back that it's unlikely to have much of an impact, and you can't see it from anywhere outside of the site. There would be no impact on residential amenity, and the development would be water neutral. As such, it's recommended that this application is permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no speakers registered in regard to this item, so we will now move on to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Chariton.
Sorry.
Councillor
Hart just tutted at me because I asked the question. It should be a straightforward. I only have a little question about why the flat roof open. I'm guessing that's a practical issue. The only reason I mention it is I know there can be issues with flat roofs, pooling water and things like that. I'm guessing wasn't another option, or you're satisfied that there won't be any issues with the use of a flat roof in on that particular bit.
We have to assess what's submitted to us. Yeah, I mean, it's such a small extension, it's such a modest addition that we didn't consider there were any issues with this small element of flat roof on this property.
Any other comments from my colleagues? Okay. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to permit. As chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the vice chair to second, please?
I'll second it.
Can I ask for a show of hands, all those for the application? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Application number CR2024-0654 FUL 58 Crescent, Northgate, Crawley, permitted subject to the conditions set out in the report. There is no supplemental agenda. The business of the committee has concluded, so the meeting is closed at 21:08. Thank you for coming.